You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Good morning, early risers and pursuers of passion. Welcome to another powerful episode of the 5 a.m. podcast designed to elevate your mindset and transform your results. As the sun rises, of course, so does your potential, and today's conversation just might be the catalyst that propels you to new heights of success and fulfillment. I'm thrilled to introduce to you today someone who embodies the journey of transformation like few others. Liam Naden once stood at the pinnacle of conventional success, and then life delivered its harshest lesson, and he found himself homeless. Liam discovered something far more valuable than his lost fortune. Through intensive research into neuroscience and human biology, Liam uncovered a profound truth that our brains have a natural design for thriving that most of us might be working directly against. While conventional wisdom tells us to push harder, wake earlier, force ourselves through more challenges, Liam found that lasting transformation happens when we align our brain's inherent capacity for success. This conversation isn't about another productivity system, morning ritual, or product you need to buy. It's about a fundamental biological shift that can move you from constant struggle into your natural state of clarity, confidence, and achievement. Now, if you've been putting off, or you've been putting in the work rather, but you still feel that something's missing, today's insights might be exactly what you need. So grab that journal of yours, fuel your body, and prepare your mind for wisdom that could change everything. And now it's my privilege to welcome neuroscience-based success coach Liam Naden to the 5 a.m. podcast. Liam, welcome.
Hello, Michael. Thank you very much for having me here.
Oh, it's wonderful to make your acquaintance and to chat about life and success and all those adventures in between, as I'm distracted by a little woodpecker that just stopped on the bird feeder out that window. Okay, that's interesting. They haven't been here for a while because it's been summer, and now it's getting, they gotta put on those pounds from the bird seed. But Liam, your journey from millionaire to homeless to discovering the brain's natural success mechanism is extraordinary. Can you take us into that rock bottom moment where what you were experiencing internally, and what was that breakthrough realization that most people never get to have?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I was one of those traditional success seekers who really wanted to make the most out of my life. I wasn't willing to settle for, I didn't want to have an ordinary life. I want to have an exciting life.
Yeah.
So I worked really hard for years, for decades, actually, on anything I could think of that could make me successful. And I had my own businesses, and I was also a junkie for seminars and reading books on self-help and peak performance and motivation and spirituality. And I practiced all of these different things, and I went to seminars everywhere. And I ended up in this place where on the outside, I was what you would call successful. Millionaire, my own businesses, had 2 at the time, and I've had 18 altogether so far and in my life. So I had it all. I had the nice car, the nice, amazing house, the businesses, the money. Yet I never felt so more miserable. And more than anything, I was stuck, and I think that's what I really would like to share with people listening or watching today is how you can get unstuck. Because I meet so many people, and their biggest problem is not the stuff that they have in their life. It's not their career, their relationship, their money. They've got all of really what is all on their goals list, if you like, or they're working towards things, but they just feel stuck. And they're thinking, why aren't all of these things making me happy? And I was in that position of really thinking, why am I not happy? Why, and not only why can't I be happy with what I have, but I had so many problems in my life as well. It's not like everything was going beautifully. I had real problems in my marriage. My finances were a bit shaky. So I had all these things going on, and I had, the trappings of success, but I was just stuck in this place where I felt I was going down a track and it just all felt wrong. And I was trying to hold everything together. And, I'd go to another seminar or listen to another podcast or read another book about try this, do this technique. This is what you're missing. and the gurus they all seemed more successful and happier than I was. So I was really stuck. And I thought, this is really odd. And if people are in that situation, they're probably
Yeah.
thinking, I have a challenge to them to ask, why is it that in today's world, we have more information, more technology, more resources than we've ever had in history, yet we've got more problems? We're unhappy. We're more miserable. The suicide rate in the Western world is 10 times what it was 100 years ago. 10
Oh,
times. So we're not
wow.
any happier, but we've got all of these resources. We should be a lot happier. We should know the answers to all our problems because we've got instant information. And now
Uh-huh.
with AI coming along, we've got even
Yeah.
exponentially more information, but we've still got the problems and we're still stuck. And that was
Yes.
the position I ended up being in when it all collapsed a few weeks later, literally, and I lost everything. I lost my marriage, my businesses, my home, and I ended up having to move in with my elderly mother and sleep on the sofa in the living room of her small apartment. And
Mm-hmm.
that's when it really hit me that everything that I'd learnt about how we're supposed to create success in our life simply didn't work. And I had to be really honest. And again, this is what I find when I help people and work with them is if they're really honest, they admit that we've got all these techniques, we've got all these
Mm-hmm.
methods, but nothing really gets us to where we want to go. And that's the place I had to be honest with myself for the first time and say, whatever I've been doing, if I'm really honest, it's not working. Setting goals, it hasn't worked for me. I mean, this wasn't on my goals list, was to
Mm-hmm.
lose everything.
Yes.
These things aren't working. So I thought, I, you know, if they're not working, what am I going to do differently? And
Yeah.
what I ended up doing was something very different. And it turned out what I ended up doing without even realizing it at the time was in line with who we are naturally. So instead
Mm.
of trying to force things to happen, we have a biological side, which is actually, as you said in your introduction, it's naturally designed to make sure that we don't have problems in our life. And we can talk about why that is.
Yeah.
But when I uncovered this and started to apply it to my life without realizing what I was doing at the time, everything changed. And life became an adventure rather than a struggle. And I started to do some really great things and surprising things, and my life completely turned around. So that's when I decided I had to figure out what I was actually doing
Mm.
differently.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
when I started to look at all of this and started to share it with other people and see how other people got it as well, it made a huge difference.
Wow. That's fascinating. And a great synopsis of what you were going through and how it sounds like you realized that you needed some mind renewal on things that have been taught to you in the past. Um, and I want to dig into that, but I also want to ask you too about this survival mode that we hear about. Would you say that this survival mode is the primary block to true achievement?
Well, actually, this is going to sound a shock to people.
Okay.
If you really want to know the block to true achievement,
Yes.
ready for it? It's thinking.
Huh.
Thinking itself. Because here's something I've discovered that's really interesting that nobody else is talking about. Humans
Okay.
have been around for about 300,000 years, Homo sapiens, the species. And for 97% of that time, we didn't have stress and problems in our life. You
Mm.
mentioned the woodpecker that you see
Yes.
outside the window. Now, if you look at the woodpecker, does it have problems? Is it worried about life? Does it actually struggle to survive? It doesn't. It just, when it wants food, it finds food. When it needs to fly somewhere, it flies somewhere. And the reason is, or should I say, this is how all of nature is actually set up. Nature is set up not based on struggle to survive, but actually being its best, thriving. And I know we've all seen videos of, animals starving and all that sort of thing. That is not the norm. The norm in
Yeah.
nature is every living thing is designed and wired by instinct to be its best, to give it the
Hmm.
greatest chance for survival. And
Yeah.
nature has had millions of years to figure out the most efficient way to survive. And the most efficient way to survive using the least amount of energy, which gives
Yeah.
it the greatest chance for survival, is not through struggle. It's working out a way to be its best without problems. And the really interesting thing about that is humans lived that way for nearly all of our history. For those 300,000 years, until 12,000 years ago, we actually, and I know we all have this image of cavemen living these brutal, short lives and miserable lives. It actually wasn't like that at all. It was the opposite. All of the records show that humans were far healthier than we are today. They were taller, up to 5 inches taller. They had larger brains. Their brains were up to 11% in a male, 11% larger than our brains are
Wow.
today. There was no such thing as cancer, heart disease. There were no bone problems. If there's fossil records, or should I say bone records, which show that when a human broke a bone, usually it healed quite quickly. It mightn't have been perfect, but it just healed on itself.
Right.
Our immune systems were so much better. And there was no, the other interesting thing, there was no such thing as war or conflict. There is no record until 12,000 years ago of conflict between people. People lived harmoniously. We did what the rest of nature did. When we wanted food, we found food, and we spent our time enjoying life. And the whole point is that I'm getting at is our brain is designed for that. Our brain is designed to operate in that way. But we did something different 12,000 years ago. We invented something which got us using our brain in a different way. And from that moment on, you can literally track it to the year, maybe the 100th year, of suddenly our health declined, wars broke out, unhappiness, which we'd never had before, became a part of human society, and struggle became a part of human life. And it all came down to this one invention, which got us using our brain differently and got us to start to focus on struggling and creating problems in life and trying to solve problems that we'd created through this one invention.
Wow. And so that almost sounds like the account of this one moment in time where sin entered the world. We could say some sort of cataclysmic event, as you think of, the gates of Hercules and Atlantis and other civilizations like that. That's what I'm getting from as you're talking, and it sounds then like did this even affect the brain chemistry, that maybe our brains are wired to this grinding and feeling unfulfilled, and I have to see who likes my post online so I can get some more endorphins? Is there something in the brain chemistry to that?
Yes, it had a direct effect on how the brain chemistry operates. And you mentioned, mythological or historical accounts of what happened. Well, of course, one of the accounts of what happened was in the Bible, at the story of Adam and Eve. Remember, Adam and Eve, they were living this utopian existence, wonderful life, but they ate from the tree of knowledge and were cast out of the garden and spent the rest of their lives and their children's lives toiling. And that's what we did as humans. We went from this experience of enjoying life and only working 2 or 3 hours a day to working 12 hours a day, toiling in the fields. So you might want to know what that invention was. What got us using our brain differently. And again, this is quite shocking when you first realize that what the invention was 12,000 years ago was language.
Wow.
Language suddenly made us think about the past, think about the future. But the weird thing is our brain is not designed for thinking. For 97% of our history, we didn't think. We acted purely on instinct, just like the rest of nature. And suddenly with language, now we weren't just dealing with the present moment, because remember, your brain is designed to respond instinctively and perfectly to all of the stimulation that you receive in the present moment through your senses. Everything you hear, smell, taste, touch, and see, your brain interprets and shows you the right thing to do to make sure that you live your best life. But when we created language, what we created were stories. We didn't experience life directly. We started to tell stories about life. So we could see problems that didn't exist. We started to create problems. We started to create dangers. Our brain is designed to react to a danger instinctively. And we know this, for instance, if you're walking down the street and someone runs at you with a knife, you're going to run away, or you're going to shout for help, or you're going to, that fight, flight, freeze instinct that we have. Those are the dangers the brain is designed to deal with, real dangers. But when we started to create stories about life rather than experience it just instinctively, we would say things like, I've got enough food now, but I might not have enough food tomorrow or in the future. I'm safe now from lions, but maybe I won't be tomorrow. So we
Wow.
started to do things to protect ourselves from future dangers, and that's where all the problems came. So
Wow.
originally we were nomadic hunters, and we ate the perfect food for us that meant we didn't have diseases and problems. But you can't control the future as a nomad. You can't control your food supply. So we said to ourselves, we need enough food for next year. So we need to plant crops. And we started to plant crops of food that weren't really suitable for us. And that's why people started to get sick. The lifespan decreased of humans, and all these new diseases cropped up. And we said, well, to protect the crops, we need to build a village or a town or a city, and we need to have walls, and we need to have leaders, and we need to have slaves, and we have to have all of these systems of control to protect ourselves, not from what's going on right now, but from future threats, because someone might attack us, someone might want what we have, or we might say, I've got enough for now, but you've got more, and I want what you have because I might not have enough in the future. So literally we created this world of stories about the future, about what's going to happen, about what we think is going to happen. And it switched our brain into a state that our brain is not designed to do that, because our brain sees, if you tell a story about it, it doesn't have a sense of time. You don't tell it as it doesn't see the future. It sees everything as now. And suddenly the brain was forced to try and solve all of these problems which don't exist, which aren't there. And that's what puts us into this fear-based, stress-based survival state, which our brain is saying, I need to solve every possible problem that you could possibly ever have, because I see that they're all happening to you right now, and I need to protect you.
Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com. Well, that really is, it almost feels like it's a tale as old as time, but it's not, because there was a starting point. This story trap, I can see it as a major roadblock. And even you look at, well, we would like to go watch movies, or you watch a TV series or something in our leisure time, but then you realize, and this is something even my wife and I have talked about, you get to a point where you're just like, I can't stomach this story. It's something objectionable to me, or I can't believe it. I would rather create something with my hands and my mind than have someone tell me this story that now I'm starting to find objectionable, because I realize that it's actually stealing my time. It's like a time vampire. And so I can see then from what you're saying is that these stories that started coming up, and even if we go back to the garden, of missing the truth of in like that Adam and Eve situation, where they didn't realize that they were able to co-labor and create, just like as their head creator formed them, they had the opportunity to do exactly the same thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, eat from this tree that will give you stories. It'll give you knowledge. It'll rewire your neural pathways. And then they found out the hard way that they were thrust into unknown territory and extreme survival mode. So then I got to say, I really appreciate what you're saying, because it really resonates with me. And even the thoughts that, like I was saying, my wife and I have been talking about these very things leading up to this week. And ladies and gentlemen, Liam and I have not been talking beforehand. So it's, serendipitous moments, correct? But what's that first step in disrupting this then story block pattern?
Well, if you realize that we thrive by instinct, that's the first thing to really realize. And when you think about it, nearly everything we do by instinct anyway. You scratch your nose, you move your head, you move your leg, you move around, you do your teeth. You're not thinking about any of that. So what is it that enables you to scratch your nose when you have an itch, or do anything, or it's not your thoughts. And we've got hung up on this idea that our thoughts are going to solve our problems, that we can figure out what to do, that we can find an answer. And those answers can be everything from the meaning of life. There is no meaning to life. What we're seeking when we're seeking the meaning of life is a knowing about life, is a knowing,
Yeah.
not an intellectual word-based thinking. And if you think of something like love, name one person who can explain to you what love is in words. Not one person on the planet throughout history, everyone's tried to explain it. But we
It's
all
true.
know what it feels like. We know the experience of it because it's reality, it's truth. Because anything you can put a label on or a word, you limit. And
Yeah.
love is not limited. So that's an example of we're designed to be instinctive beings. We're not designed to have thoughts and stories go on in our head. Now, obviously, we've got thoughts, so we can't, they have their use, they have their place. But we need to learn to get back to living instinctively, not just in the 99% of the time that we do when we do live instinctively, which is when we move around and our body moves and we look at things and we're not processing information in stories and words. But when we have a story come up in our head, and there's a way to know that, and that is how you feel. If you start to feel a little bit anxious or frustrated or whatever, it's not what's going on that's causing you to feel that. It's the story you're telling about it. I've done a lot of work, as an example, with couples and people in their marriage. And they often say to me, we're sick of having so many arguments. And I say to them, well, why do you argue? What's actually happening when you're having an argument? And if you think about it, and listening or watching, when you have an argument with your husband or your wife or anyone for that matter, they're saying words and you're saying words, but you're telling a story. And it's the story that you're responding to, because you're saying to yourself, they need to understand what I'm saying. They're not getting it. They should see my point of view. We need to fix this and solve this problem in this argument so that we can have a better relationship or a better marriage. So, and that's what causes the argument is we're responding, or our brain is reacting to a story. It's not reacting to the reality. We're not acting instinctively. We're not just standing there without thinking. We're trying to think of what to say next and how to figure out how to say something better than they're saying. So when you feel an anxiety or any emotion, really, say to yourself, what's the story? And you don't need to know what the story is. All you need to know is there is a story. You need to know that you're not responding instinctively to the present moment situation. Your brain is responding to a set of circumstances that aren't there. And when it does that, it can't show you the best thing to do in the current circumstance, because you're not responding to the present. You're responding to something else. So when you feel the story starting to come up in your head, you don't need to analyze it. You don't need to change it. This isn't about positive thinking, because that doesn't work either, because you're still trapped in a story. You're not responding to the present moment. So you just need to be aware of it and say, well, I'm not going to think the story anymore, and operate by instinct. And when you start practicing this, what you notice is you're a lot more productive, and you start doing things that actually make a difference in your life. Instead of being stuck in a problem. And this is what I did when I was on my mother's sofa and I didn't realize I was doing. I just started responding to the present moment. I didn't say to myself, what are my goals? What do I need to do today? What do I need to figure out? What's the answer to this problem? How do I get to where I want to go? I just responded without any judgment, without any thought, to exactly what was there in the present moment. And what I actually did was allowed my brain to take over and say, look, thank goodness you're out of the way. You're not telling these stories anymore. You don't have any prejudged ideas about where you want to go or where you should end up. I know where you should end up. I know what's best for you in your life, because that's what I'm here for.
Right.
That's what the brain is designed to do, to make sure you thrive, but it does it through your instincts. So when you give up all the goal setting and the analysis and the planning, and, sometimes you need planning, obviously, or even analysis. For instance, if you want to go on a trip, well, you have to plan where to go and how to get there once you've decided. But most of the time, we don't need thinking in that way. We need to just act.
Right.
We need to act instinctively, knowing that we're just going to, and without judgment, we're going to do the right thing. And when you make life a whole series of instinctive actions, that's when it flows. And that's where you go exactly along the right path. It's probably going to be a completely different path to where you are right now. I mean, when I was at the moment, I'm talking to you from my yacht off the coast of Italy. Now, if you'd said to me on my mother's sofa that I'm going to be living on yachts and cruising around the world and and then sharing information and talking to wonderful people like
Right.
michaelklassen about how we're instinctively designed, I would have thought they were absolutely crazy for two reasons.
Yeah.
One is I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know anything about
Yes.
sailing or anything. But the second more important thing is I didn't know that that's what I wanted. And instead of spending time trying to figure out what you want and realize that's just a story, why not just allow what
Yeah.
you really want? Why don't you let your brain to just bring it to you? And you're going to be
Right.
shocked, like I was, about what
Yeah.
shows up. And that's
Oh,
a
that
far more
makes,
exciting way to live, is
yeah.
to see what shows up rather than try and force things to happen.
That sounds so intriguing, I'm sure, to many people. And while you're talking, of course, coming from a Christian background, being in Sunday school as a child, you would hear the teacher say these words of Jesus of don't think about all these necessities of life. Don't think about the food. Don't think about what you're going to wear. Just like look at my creation. It's abundant. And even
Yeah.
Jesus himself said that I've come to actually give you an abundant life that you have not even known for the last 10,000 years, however long. We have rose bushes in our yard, a lot of them, and we love them, but we notice they only know abundance.
Yeah.
They only know abundance. We've got a white rose bush. That little thing, it's a wonderful plant, and it is just like this explosion of white blooms, and one goes out and another one's ready to take its place. And to us here in our home, that's the perfect symbol to us of the abundant life that we can have. And so many people struggle so hard, but there's no struggle with that rose bush, not even on our part. If we pruned it and cut it back, it would just come back bigger with even more blooms.
The biggest challenge I have with people is to help them just to get started with this. But once you do, and you start to get a different feeling about how you're interacting with life, and you start to see different results, and you're not attached to outcomes, you're enjoying the moment rather than wondering where you're going to be tomorrow or whether it's the right thing you should be doing. Life takes on a different quality.
What a wonderful world we do indeed live in. Liam, an absolute pleasure to have you on 5am podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me. It's been really great to talk to you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I do want to remind you of Liam's website. He's got a quiz there, so it's liamnaden.com. There is a quiz about is your brain in survival mode or natural success mode. Until next time, please seize your day, enjoy those sunrises and sunsets and all the adventures in between. I'm glad you've been here. I'm glad Liam was here. I'm Michael Klassen. Thank you and have a wonderful, wonderful day.